The Fourth Chance.
Pardon me, friends, but is this the former home of Starlight Glimmer?
Double Diamonds didn't recognize the voice when it spoke to him, but it sounded friendly enough, and he turned with a wide smile on his face to greet this newcomer to their little village. However, as soon as he did so, his eyes widened considerably, for this was not just some random pony coming for a visit, but one far more unexpected. Princess Celestia? The white stallion fell to his knees, bowing respectfully. I can't believe that you would come to a place like this. We would be honored to have you here. Celestia, who had been through many centuries of ponies acting this way towards her, offered a polite smile before silently gesturing to the groveling pony before her. Double looked to her, and after a moment of hesitation, got back to his hooves, brushing himself off. Celestia glanced around, seeing many a stallion and mare whisper excitedly to one another, no doubt because of her presence here. Yet, there was something else to it, it was just as if she were scouring the village for some pony in particular. Some pony she had yet to see, and so, when her eyes failed to find what she wanted, she again looked to Double.
I thank you for your kind welcome, Mr. Diamonds, but I'm actually here to see some pony in particular.
Double nodded, his face far wider than before. Oh, certainly. Just ask and I'll take you right to them. Celestia gave a slight bow of her head in thanks for his offer.
So, it is my understanding that they're rather new here. Would you know of any recent additions to your village?
And it was with that question that Double's smile faded, but only a little. He clearly didn't want to appear in any way uncomfortable in front of her, but it was obvious to Celestia that this wasn't something that he wanted to be talking about. Yes, we did have some pony new, but he's not really the friendliest of types. Celestia, forever maintaining her poker face, inquired further.
Oh? Do tell.
Double sighed. He's not bad, exactly, but he kinda keeps to himself. He never talks to any pony and mostly just does his chores before staying in his house all day. Celestia again looked around the immediate area.
Would you care to tell me where I might find him?
Double, never one to refuse a request from royalty, looked over his shoulder, pointing down the main street of the town. You'll find him just out of the other side of the village. You can't miss it. The princess gave him a smile of her own.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
She watched him give a second bow to her before beginning to walk forward. Double didn't follow, nor did any pony else, even as she passed by them. Celestia's ears continued to pick up all the usual chatter and gossip that tended to accompany any surprise visit she made to a place, but her focus was squarely on her destination. House after house she passed, and before long she was right to where Double had told her about, leaving the furthest end of the village and heading just outside of it. True to Double's word, there was indeed another house out there, though it would have been more accurate to call it a hovel, given the size. Already, the princess knew he wasn't within, since she could hear sounds coming from around the back. Making her way there, she saw him. A unicorn stallion, dark in both fur and mane, his back turned to her. With his magic, he was levitating nearby logs onto a large flat stone in front of him, before taking hold of a nearby axe and chopping them in a single swing. Though, she would normally not want to interrupt some pony when they were making firewood for themselves, today was not the day for formalities, and so Celestia took a single step forward and cleared her throat. Instantly, the stallion stopped mid-swing, and though he did not turn to look at her, he spoke all the same. I don't get many visitors. His words were short and to the point, with a relatively deep voice, and one that Celestia knew well already. I thought at first I might have been imagining things when I sensed you, but it seems my intuition is still as sharp as it used to be. The stallion kept his face away from her. You've come to the wrong place, miss. I don't know you, and you don't know me. Celestia's eyes narrowed.
We both know that's not true.
Few would have heard her speaking that coldly, but not this one. Instead, the stallion sighed, swiftly planting his axe right into the next log in line before finally turning to face her. The image Celestia now saw was more than a little different from the last time she'd seen him. No armor, no cape, no bright red horn. He was, for all intents and purposes, a regular-looking unicorn stallion, if a bit harsh in his features, and those features made it clear that he wasn't happy with his unexpected visit. "So, you found me. I wondered if my presence here would be known to you eventually." Celestia took a cautious step forward.
There are few places in this nation that I do not keep an eye on, Sombra.
The dark unicorn frowned at her. "So? Should I expect your sister to appear out of nowhere to join you in vanquishing me? Or perhaps your beloved apprentice and her friends?" Slowly, Celestia shook her head.
No. It's just me today.
Sombra raised an eyebrow. "Brave of you. Or foolish, given how things went during my last revival." The princess looked him over, her voice betraying her understandable curiosity.
Yes, and how exactly did you revive this time?
For the first time in all the long years that she'd known him, Sombra actually appeared to be at a loss on that one. "That... I cannot say. One moment I'm facing down, he combined powers of Twilight and her friends. The next, I awake in a place that I'd never been." He looked to the side, pointing to some nearby mountains. "Over there, amid the cracks and jagged rocks." Celestia regarded that place, then looked back to him.
I would have expected you to try your hoof at seizing Equestria again. Not chopping wood.
Sombra grimaced, looking to his sizable pile of firewood. Time has a way of changing one's perspective." Celestia looked to him with more than a little incredulity.
Am I to believe that you, upon returning to the world of the living, have simply decided to retire?
A moment of pondering that notion led to Sombra giving out a quick chuckle. "An odd prospect, I'll grant you. A unicorn framed the world over for his desire for conquest and subjugation. Now choosing to live a life away from every pony and everything." He paused, but only for a moment. "If there's one great teacher in this world, Celestia, it's failure." Even Celestia couldn't help but smirk at that.
Then I'm sure you must be very well taught by this point.
Ignoring that, though still frowning to it, Sombra began to explain himself. "In those ancient times, I sought dominion over the Crystal Empire. And though I succeeded, my efforts led you and your sister to me, and thus my downfall was assured." He glanced away. "When I returned, I was felled again, and not even by alicorns this time, but simply by a young dragon and the ponies I once enslaved." His frown deepened. "When a third time stepped into the fore, I reached further than ever, yet I was still defeated." A long sigh escaped him. 3 strikes, and I am out." Celestia's face, if only a little, softened to him.
So, you gave up?
Again, Sombra did not look to her, instead staring at the distance, to the horizon. "A life of conquest and war brought me only to ruin. Dominance earned me naught but enemies. Ambition of rulership was always snatched away from me. Were I to try such a thing for a 4th time, there's no doubt that I would simply meet the same end as before." His ancient foe considered those words.
Well, I cannot call you wrong, O Fallen King.
There was a time Sombra might have raged against such a thinly veiled insult, but that time was not now, and instead he just sighed again. A life like this. Away from others, a life of quiet. I never considered it, never wanted it, yet here I am. Perhaps there is value in this simple life so many other ponies live. If nothing else, I might not end up in the same dark place. Silence passed between them, and for a good long while too. Whether Celestia believed that he said or not was hard to say, given how legendarily good she was at hiding her feelings on such matters. Yet, as her old foe just stood there, never once showing any signs of aggression or bitterness towards her, there eventually came a moment when the princess turned. One more to look at the mountains where the stallion had again returned to the world.
Perhaps fate decided that you are finally ready to be allowed your freedom.
Sombra snorted. Fate? I don't believe in it. Celestia looked down to the ground for a moment.
Perhaps not. But whether, though, some higher power, or simply some fluke of the magical forces of our world, you live again. Yet you seem to have chosen peace instead of war.
A quick giggle came to her.
You know, I honestly never would have thought you to be capable of such a life.
Sombra rolled his eyes. We are of a kind in that regard. But his face became more steely afterwards. Though, choosing a quiet life will do me little good if I am to spend it in a prison. Celestia looked to him with seriousness.
Prison? And why do you believe that will be your fate?
Sombra actually seemed amused by such a question. Come on now, princess. We both know why you're here. You came to see if I lived again, and if I did, to ensure that I could no longer harm Equestria. He looked around. Now that you found me, I have no doubt that you'll call in some reinforcement to ensure that I'm apprehended for my past crimes. The princess nodded solemnly.
It is true. Were you still walking your old path, that is indeed what I would have intended. But instead, I find you living by yourself, not wanting to be bothered by any pony. You came here to a town few even know of, and chose isolation even within a community like this one.
She took a deep breath.
You were right, Sombra. You have committed many crimes, and there are likely few who would ever forgive you for them. But it could be said that you have already paid for those crimes with centuries of imprisonment, and even death. Twice.
Sombra arched an eyebrow. For the record, the deaths hurt worse. Celestia ignored him.
I see not the rampaging beast who needs stopping, but instead a stallion who seeks to live alone. So?
She turned, beginning to walk back to the town proper.
If that is what you wish your life to be, then that is what it shall be.
Sombra looked to her, utterly bewildered. You mean to just leave me here? No fight. Just walk away? Celestia, keeping her back to him, answered.
Do not mistake me. I have no intention of allowing you free rein. There will always be eyes watching. Peace may be something I'm willing to grant, but that does not make me a fool who will simply trust blindly.
Slowly, she looked over her shoulder, narrowing her eyes to him.
Should you threaten Equestria again?
Her tone made it clear that this was not freedom, but a watchful probation. And while Sombra might have once chafed under such a suggestion, now he simply sighed, giving a nod. If those are to be the new terms of this new life, then I can accept them. Again, Celestia nodded.
In that case, I shall take my leave. Farewell, Sombra. I wish you well in this new home.
Though it surprised him greatly, Sombra knew that she'd meant that, and so stood in silence as she, Princess of the Sun, continued to walk away. Eventually he could see her no longer, and so he was once more alone. He preferred the solitude, of course, but the meeting had left him with so much to ponder. So, this is my life now. Free to live alone, always watched with my enemies ready to strike the moment I stray, he said to no one in particular. As the notion sank in for him, he glanced around, wondering where Celestia might have had her eyes here. Were they among the townsfolk? Were they perhaps guards high up in the clouds ready to just swoop down at him? Whatever the case, he knew he had nothing to fear. He had no intention of making war again, for he knew well the only fate that road would lead him to. And so, as he sat upon his log-chopping stone, he allowed himself a moment to chortle. Well, beats being killed at least.